So we have Seeley, Swan, and Bozeman here today, and Deer Lodge is joining us momentarily. We're really excited to have you guys for our first Council in the Classroom program. My name is Aubrey Lyons. I'm the director of the World Affairs Council of Montana, and we started Council in the Classroom in 2013 with a grant from the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, and we are so excited to be able to put this together and reach classrooms in all corners of the state. We have a very important guest here today, Karolo Aparicio, and he is the executive director of EcoViva, and he's got a really exciting topic to share with us today, youth leadership in El Salvador, and so I will pass it over to him.
Conference recording has started.
Oh, great. Feel free to ask questions as you go. So thank you guys for coming in today, and we'll look forward to following up. Here's our guest.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Council in the Classroom and Inspired Classroom. So is that my camera?
That's your camera.
All right, I'm going to say hi to the camera. Hi, hi students, how are you? Hello. All right. So, so thanks everyone for showing up. I greatly appreciate it, and greatly appreciate this opportunity to share about the work that we do in El Salvador to foster youth-led initiatives for environmental sustainability and economic well-being. So thank you so much for joining me today. So, oh, cool, okay. So, so before getting onto the topic of youth-led initiatives in El Salvador, I wanted to introduce myself and give you a little bit of an idea of where I'm coming from, and just a little bit about my background. But before we get to that, I thought that I'd give you all an opportunity to introduce yourselves, and there's a lot of you. So I'll tell you what, amongst yourselves, why don't you pick 3 people from each of the classrooms, and introduce yourselves, and tell me something interesting about where you live, because I don't know anything about where you're from.
Let's go ahead and start with Bozeman schools. Bozeman, would you like to go ahead and have 3 representatives tell us a little something? You'll have to unmute your microphone as well.
Unless you want to do an interpretive dance, that's cool too. I was kidding, just say something. You ready, Bozeman?
Yeah, I guess you're I think so. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can totally hear you.
Hi, we're in Bozeman, Montana. We live in a great area. There's it's really mountainous, a lot of snow. Mostly tourism is our main product, I guess. Yeah, a lot of skiing, a lot of tourist-based business on Montana and what's cool about Montana in general. So.
That's cool. All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you. All right. Anyone else?
I'm Elsa.
Hi, Elsa.
Yeah, like I said, Bozeman is really great. There's lots of outdoors things to do, like skiing and biking and hiking and stuff.
What class are we in?
Oh, this is APQ Geography.
AP Geography. Okay, right on. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more.
Alright, likewise, Bozeman, pretty awesome place. There's tons of outdoor stuff to do here. But, yeah, also in a really great school. Glad they offer this class. So, we're on.
Right on. Okay.
Okay, Seeley, Swan, let's hear from you.
Let's hear from you guys.
I'm Dan, and Seeley's a great place. We have a ton of lakes. It snows a lot here.
Where is it? What part of the state are you in?
We're north east of Montana. I mean, Missoula. Sorry. We're like 50 miles from Missoula. So.
Way northwest of you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty great.
Of those.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
So I'm Logan, and well, there's lots of cool things about Sealy. Well, we don't live around mountains. Well, we live on a mountain. So but there's lots of lakes, and like Bozeman, we have our main. We get most of our money from tourism, and there's only about 200 kids in the school. So it's a small town, and I like small towns, so perfect.
Cool. All right, very nice to meet you.
Okay. Let's have one more from Sealy Swan.
Perfect.
You don't have to come on.
Peekaboo.
I'm Autumn, and we all live here, and we snowmobile, and we have a lot of lakes.
All right, cool. Nice to meet you.
And I always want to take a second to welcome Deer Lodge. Deer Lodge, what we're doing really quickly is if you would choose 3 students that would like to introduce themselves and say something amazing or something about where you live. So it is now your turn. You'll have to unmute yourself too. Good. Oh, there we go.
Deer Lodge, Montana, home of the Montana State Prison. Go Oregon.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Like you said, we got some mountains around here too. We don't live on top of it.
You don't live on a mountain.
Okay. All right. Let's just do one more quick introduction of, who you are and something interesting about where you live.
Hello, I'm from Andrew Violet, and I am from Deer Lodge too, home of the Wardens, and that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's really great to meet all of you. And as promised, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My parents were born in Guatemala, and I was actually born and raised in San Francisco. I'm currently executive director of
there we go.
There we go. Of this organization, EcoViva, and let's see, what else can I tell you about myself? I've oops.
I'm gonna take this from you.
Oh, is that the?
That one controls the.
Great. So I've typically been drawn to organizations that work at the intersection of environmental conservation, human rights, and development. So if we could just go back a little slide, we can show the little NASCAR type thing of all the different logos of places that I've worked. My academic background is in anthropology. I did a master's degree in anthropology and spent a lot of time in Mexico and Guatemala. And later on, I went back to school and got a business degree. I got an MBA because I realized that there were a lot of skills that you can learn from business school that you can apply to managing nonprofit organizations. So that's pretty much my academic background in a nutshell, and some of the experiences that I've had, and some of the organizations that I've worked with. Slide, please. So, EcoViva supports environmental conservation initiatives and environmental sustainability. We also work on social justice issues with communities in Central America. EcoViva's had partnerships with with community-led organizations in Central America to achieve both environmental sustainability and economic development. These are things that are often seen as being at odds with one another. But one of the things that we like to do, and the analytical lens through which we look at things, is that you can have both. You can work on environmental sustainability issues, and you can work on rural development and economic development. So slide, please. So, are all the classes geography classes, or what other classes do we have? Here? So I know we have an AP Geography.
And a World Geography.
World Geography.
World Geography. Okay, right on. And what's the other one?
Physics.
Physics. Okay. All right, right on. We'll do a physics experiment later on. We'll drop things or something, or maybe I'll get electrocuted on a cable. But we typically work in, we have partnerships and collaborations in Central America. Our programmatic areas are in, oh, I got it.
You're doing good.
El Salvador, Nicaragua, we have some partnerships, and we've also worked in collaboration with folks in Panama. We work, as I mentioned earlier, we work on rural economic development with the idea of helping people work on promoting dignified livelihoods and sustainability with regard to the environment that they live in. So here's a map of El Salvador. We work mostly in this region called Usulután. It's a department in the country of El Salvador. El Salvador is a really, really small country, as you could see in the previous map. And the region that we work in here in Usulután is actually the home of one of the largest mangrove forests. Does anyone know what a mangrove forest is?
You can raise your hand and we'll call it.
Yeah, you can raise your hand. Or give it a guess. All right, so a mangrove forest. Go on.
Bozeman, did you have a guess?
Go for it.
Like the trees? Aren't they like the big trees that live in like marshy environments?
Yeah. They're forests. They're trees that live in brackish water, which is the confluence of salt water and fresh water. They're a wetland environment, and they're really important, in terms of global climate, if you will, because they're a very important carbon sink. They actually absorb more carbon from the atmosphere than even tropical rainforest on an acre-by-acre basis. So they're really important. They're also really important because they support a great degree of biodiversity. So especially in the area where we work, in the Department of Usulután, there are native species of endangered sea turtles that use it for nesting grounds. There's migratory birds that stop over in the bay, which is really very nutrient rich for them. And what that means is that there's huge implications all up and down the Pacific Flyway for these migratory birds, because they travel all up and down the Pacific. So what happens in these in this environment has implications for the rest of the Pacific region. So it's a pretty environmentally it's a pretty important region. So in advance, what we're really going to talk about today is youth participation, youth leadership, youth participation in environmental and economic initiatives for self-sufficiency. But as background, before I came on board, we assigned some reading on child migration. I mean, I don't know if you recall, but last year there was a huge surge of unaccompanied minors who were coming from Central America to the United States. So I was wondering if everyone had a chance to read the article that I passed on, and get out of the way.
Why don't we give
See
us
the
a
title.
thumbs up if you've read the article?
All right,
All
I
right,
see.
yay.
I see thumbs up. Awesome, great. So let's break down the content of the article. So does anyone remember which countries the young people tended to be migrating from?
So I'm wondering, I see that we have maybe about 8 questions.
Yep.
Let's go with Bozeman and Sealy Swan both read the article. Let's go ahead. We'll start with Sealy Swan for the first 4, and then we'll move down over to Bozeman for the second 4. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds perfect.
Okay, so Sealy Swan, you're on.
Go.
Okay, good.
Okay, so so what countries were young people migrating from?
El Salvador, Guatemala, and Ecuador. No, Honduras.
Honduras. Yep. There you go. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Most of the young people who were migrating during that time period, the unaccompanied minors, they were indeed coming from tended to come from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. In the article, what were some of the factors that were identified as being some of the main reasons for why people were migrating to the U.S.? And then we'll do the other 3. Okay, perfect. What was that?
Violence.
Violence? Mm-hmm.
Violence.
Okay.
Good. Sorry.
Poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Poverty.
Corrupt government.
Okay. Yep. Great. Yeah, those are all push factors that were identified in the article, and we're going to talk a little bit more later on about what folks are doing to address some of these issues. So let's do one more because we only have actually 6 questions. So what else do we know about the history of these countries that might have been contributing factors to violence, to poverty, and all these other issues that happened, that took place, that led to the surge of migration recently? What do we know about the history of what happened in about the 1980s, maybe?
The war in El Salvador, the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. Go ahead. Can you say more?
How very few people own land, so the FMLN wanted to distribute it back out to people, and a lot of civilians died because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely, there's definitely a legacy of civil wars and of violence, and also of political repression on the part of repressive governments pretty early on, and that sort of set the precondition for where we are right now with under-resourced governments, and in some cases, like in Honduras and what we've seen recently in Guatemala, corruption being rampant in their governments. So let's go to Bozeman. Let's go to Bozeman. So recently, there's been more attention focused on refugees from the Middle East and Europe. But according to the article, is this situation of child migration from Central America still unfolding? What does the current situation look like? I mean, what's happening right now that child migration from Central America isn't really in the news here in the United States?
I think the reason that it's not really in the news as much is because there's been a massive influx of migrants from the Middle East into Europe, where it's causing problems for the entire European Union, where they have to make decisions on where they're going to relocate all these people, just because there's so many of them that have suddenly come to Europe. So that's causing more, I guess, stirring up more news than
So yeah, so there has been a focus on events in the Middle East and the war in Syria, and that's been focus on the news. But what about the phenomenon of migration from Central America? Is this still happening? According to the article that you read, is this still an issue that we need to pay attention to?
Yes.
Yeah. What's happening to these patterns of migration? So I'll just go ahead and answer it. According to the article from Washington Office on Latin America, a lot of the young migrants are being stopped and detained in Mexico. So this really isn't. It's a problem, if you will, that's been being outsourced to Mexico from the United States. But this still is very much an issue that's alive and is very important. If we think about the welfare of young people from Central America. Okay, so here's another question, and this is going to be a lead-in to what we're going to talk about for the rest of the presentation. It's what do you think some of the things, what can be done to address some of these drivers for child migration? We talked about poverty and we talked about violence. What are some issues that can address both of these problems?
Education.
Nice. Investment in education, absolutely. Is there anything else?
New government leadership.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And if you've been paying attention to the news of what's going on in Guatemala, they recently essentially forced their president to resign. So I suggest that you just do a quick Google search of Guatemala news, and you'll see a very interesting process that's unfolding right now. They ousted a president because of corruption, and recently held elections, and we'll see what's going to happen with this situation. Hopefully, things will improve with a change in government. But you never know the future until it becomes the past. So anyway, I'd like to share a short video with you. Thank you. I'd like to share a short video with you on some of the youth-led initiatives that we've been working on in El Salvador. I'm going to step aside.
Perfect.
Hola, mi nombre es Marta.
Mi nombre es Douglas Chica.
Bueno, mi nombre es Rigoberto, soy estudiante de acuicultura.
Estoy en la parte del programa de jóvenes.
Estamos trabajando con el programa de jóvenes sobre un censo domiciliar.
Comenzamos a trabajar en el programa de jóvenes con el fin de querer aportar al trabajo comunitario junto con la gente. Estamos coordinando las actividades de la juventud.
En la zona hay diferentes tipos de programas, como está la alfabetización, las que van a teñir con añil, los de teatro, están los de artesanía. La mentalidad de los jóvenes en las comunidades es que después de sacar su estudio, ya sea noveno o bachillerato, emigrar a los Estados Unidos para tener más oportunidades.
La institución Mangle, bueno, está trabajando bastante con los jóvenes de lleno, abriendo un poco puertas. Bueno, muchos jóvenes aquí en la zona optan, no tienen las oportunidades de seguir estudiando, uno porque el factor económico es bastante grande, no tienen cómo pagar sus estudios. Que les viene a la mente es irse a Estados Unidos a trabajar allá.
Se abre este espacio con el fin de que el joven no vaya a pensar en determinado momento que tenga que salir del país, sino que se quede aquí haciendo trabajo con lo que tiene en la zona.
Cuando yo pensé que tenía que emigrar, pues me sentía algo incómoda porque estar lejos de los seres queridos y de sus amigos y todo.
Hay una cantidad de jóvenes que están saliendo del país, están emigrando hacia Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Entonces, ellos viajan con una intención de querer, digamos, mejorar sus condiciones de vida, pero a raíz de eso el programa de jóvenes es donde se motiva más para abrir los espacios y que los jóvenes creen sus potencias, ¿verdad? Creen sus alternativas aquí en el sector para ir a tecnificarse, y luego es la idea de que ellos son de las comunidades y han estado en el programa de jóvenes, puedan regresar y poner en práctica esos conocimientos.
Después de sacar mi título, involucrarme un poco con la asociación Mangle.
Cuando era niña yo quería ser doctora o maestra, que había más acercamiento a las personas.
Mi familia está bastante contenta, pues bueno, el esfuerzo que está haciendo ella, mi familia es bastante grande, el apoyo, y sí, esperan que me gradúe.
Siento que ahora la emigración no es una posibilidad para mí.
Al tener una base sólida de la juventud, va a disminuir la emigración hacia otro país, ¿verdad? Y los jóvenes se van a incorporar más a las actividades comunitarias y vamos a poder visualizar más juventud en la zona.
Tiene bastante futuro, digamos. Bueno, si Mangle no nos estaría apoyando, no estaría, digamos, estudiando, porque lo que haría, bueno, es trabajar durante la semana y, bueno, pagar tal vez mis estudios durante los fines de semana.
La parte que motiva a los jóvenes es el querer aportar algo a las comunidades. Es decir, que ellos conocen del programa de jóvenes, quieren estar en el programa de jóvenes, se abre el espacio y ellos cuando estando ahí quieren, lo más importante es brindar apoyo a la gente de sus comunidades.
Para mí lo importante de los programas de jóvenes del EcoViva es que los jóvenes se mantienen ocupados en cosas buenas y no andan distrayéndose en cosas malas, en la delincuencia o algo del estilo.
Entonces, si actuamos bien los jóvenes, la comunidad va a estar súper, pero si actuamos mal, la comunidad se va a ver mal. Entonces, hay que seguir trabajando con la juventud.
Mi nombre es Rigoberto.
Mi nombre es Douglas.
Mi nombre es Marta y mi futuro está aquí.
Mi futuro está aquí.
Mi futuro está aquí.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So what did you guys think about the about that short video? You know, what are some of the activities that you saw there that technical difficulty. Wow.
Sorry about that.
All right, so that was a YouTube video in an indigenous language from the UN Human Rights Commission. All right. That didn't happen. So anyway, what were some of the themes that you saw in that short video? What are some of the young people doing?
Let's go to Deer Lodge since they didn't get to participate
Thank
as much
you.
with the questions. You'll have to unmute your microphone.
That's okay. Is there anyone else?
Can we go up to Bozeman? I saw some hands up there.
What was the question?
Oh, the question is what sorts of themes did you see in that short video, and what sort of activities did you see the young people participating in that address what we were talking about a little while ago, which were the push factors to migration? What are young people doing essentially?
Got more involved in education and like getting an education and continuing their education, so it took their focus away from like turning to crime or turning to having to work to like support their family, so they could get an education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so education was absolutely important. Yep. What was another theme that emerged from that short video? I see a hand in the back.
Well, yeah, if they built up their community and structure and stuff, they'll have more of a better time like getting their education with the people that they're like close to and stuff, rather than migrating to the United States or wherever else.
Good. Yeah. So go ahead.
They're also like supporting the community and like doing
things for the community more.
That's right. It's something that we'd call civic participation. Is something that young people got involved in. So what our role as EcoViva, which is a U.S.-based nonprofit organization that supports groups in Central America, is we. Oops. We participate in these sets of activities. So resource mobilization, which is really fundraising. We raise funds here in the United States with the idea of transferring them to Central America to support activities over there. Technical assistance. So we seek out expertise to assist in programs in Central America. Advocacy, and that's more participating in government decisions around policy, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. And also building ties between movements and institutions. So this is really closely tied with technical assistance, bringing in expertise, but also having that be not just between people necessarily, but creating formal relationships between institutions. So just so you know, this region that we're talking about, if you could just move forward in the slide, yeah.
Okay.
So the region where we work, it's actually really prone to flooding. It's very vulnerable. You saw that there's a bay and there's a great degree of tropical storms. So they're really quite vulnerable to extreme weather events. And youth actually participate in these processes, in helping build what we refer to as resilient communities. And what we mean by resilient communities, it's not just preparing for the next disaster, but really there's other components to this idea of building resilient communities, and that's good infrastructure, access to economic opportunities, democratic or civic participation, food security, and also healthy ecosystems. So let me give you an example of infrastructure projects that we've all participated in and that young people have worked on. So one of the projects that we've worked on is building school gardens building solar-powered school gardens. And how does that work? These solar panels actually power pumps that bring up water for irrigation for these school gardens. And what's really great about these gardens is that they not only provide the learning experience of installing these types of power systems and then maintenance for them, but they also provide a teaching lab for gardens and for raising vegetables. And then at the end, you actually have a crop of healthy snacks for the kids in the region. So this project that we did last November with the Water Institute of University of Oklahoma and Engineers Without Borders, and also assisted by the Rotary Club International. This project that was done last November, we're going to replicate it this year in another couple of schools in the region. So another project that's been really important for civic participation and also really developing infrastructure is youth radio. So young people are active participants in programming at a radio station in the community, and this is something that it's for young people by young people, and what this also does is it trains young people in developing their skills in not just producing radio shows, but in feeling comfortable with technology. And we've talked a little while ago about fostering economic opportunities. So this is just an example of one of the youth entrepreneur projects, which is raising tilapia in these tilapia ponds that they've been developing. So diversifying their types of revenue and the types of jobs that they can have in the region. And of course, we talked about democratic and civic participation. This is something that's absolutely key to it's absolutely key to involve youth in civic participation, because these really are the future leaders. And the best way to create future leaders is by having leadership opportunities in the present. So civic participation is absolutely key. Is a key program that we have in working with youth. And also we talked about building resilient food systems. As we mentioned earlier on, this area is prone to flooding. It's also prone to drought. So the idea of having diversified agriculture that's both resistant to drought as well as resistant to floods is a good idea, and it builds food security. And there's youth that participate in all of these activities. And of course, we mentioned earlier on about the importance of mangrove forests. And the truth of the matter is that there are young people in the communities who are participating in the restoration and the protection of these mangrove forests that are just so important ecologically for people in that region. So they participate in projects such as environmental mangrove restoration, which is it's a set of methods for restoring the right level of salt water and fresh water that allows the mangroves to thrive. And the thriving mangroves, of course, lead to having great biodiversity in the region. And also, I may or may not have mentioned earlier, the importance of mangroves to the communities also has to do with being able to protect them from storms. The healthy mangroves, what they do is they actually provide a buffer against tropical storms. So healthy ecosystems means healthy communities. And here's just an aerial shot of what the region looks like and what some of these mangrove forests look like. And of course, another element is youth participation in sea turtle conservation. So this is another role that young people play in the region. Formerly, what used to happen was that folks would harvest the sea turtle eggs for consumption, and that's something that has really driven that, and also habitat loss. Those have been key drivers for the depletion of sea turtle populations. But young people now, they're active participants in collecting eggs, taking them to hatcheries, and then accompanying the little hatchlings out to sea. And this has actually helped for sea turtle populations to rebound. And here's just another shot of one of these little fellas. They're so cute. And of course, ongoing monitoring and evaluation of sea turtle populations when they're fully grown. So youth participation in building resilient communities isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to solve absolutely everything, but it really is a key component, and it's a great approach to solving some of the issues that can lead young people to try to seek better lives elsewhere. So the idea is to promote better lives at home, and also to hone the skills of leaders for tomorrow, and to do that today. So I'm wondering if there's any questions from one of the classrooms.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Bozeman. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
So
they had a period change, and
yep.
Hello. So we've got. I know Deer Lodge just had to leave as well. So we have Sealy Swan. You guys get the front and center.
Oh, we were on mute there. Howdy.
Howdy. How's it going? So are there any questions?
We had to change too, so these guys are kind of fresh. They've been here about 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, you know, I have a just sort of a thought, which is something that's happening in Montana, and actually I would say a lot of the central part of the United States too, is that we have a lot of very rural places in Montana with very small farming communities, very, very small communities, and we're seeing a migration from those very small communities to the larger cities. And I think it's a very similar, because maybe there's not necessarily unrest in those communities, but there aren't the opportunities that I see. And so I think it's an interesting kind of parallel between what's happening in Central America is actually also happening in the state of Montana as well. And I'm actually really curious of Sealy Swan, if you guys are a little closer. You're still a small community, and you have quite a few opportunities over there, but do you have family members, or have you experienced this at all in your lives?
Push factors, specifically?
Yeah, or stories to tell that would relate to that.
Sure.
So they've been discussing, the causes of migration, what causes people to pack up and leave, but what do you know of people from town? Who's had someone, raise your hand if someone in your family or someone close to you has left town for economic reasons. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see that, but that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can see that, and that's certainly a pattern worldwide where there's migration from rural regions to more urban regions, and the question is, going forward, how sustainable is that really going to be, and what sorts of strategies and what sort of policy decisions can we make to foster development in rural regions, to encourage people to either to stay and seek productive lives closer to home, closer to family. So that's a question. What we were looking at in the Salvadoran example was that there's a great degree of youth participation in different sorts of programs, especially around leadership, around environmental conservation, and youth entrepreneurship, and also youth participation in disaster preparedness. So these are some of the ways that young people are participating in bettering their lives there, and addressing some of the push factors that have led to migration to the United States. So I'm wondering if there's anything else that we should talk about.
Do you have any other questions before we go today? And then I was saying, Mr. Stone, that this will be available so that this group can watch the beginning of the video conference and the last group can watch the end later today.
That'd be great to have the recording that we can catch both of them up and give them the full deal.
Absolutely. So,
great.
Any last questions or comments?
Looks like no.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate the time that we got to spend together, and thank you so much.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Sealy Swan. We hope to see you again, and thank you to the World Affairs Council and the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation.